So we're interested in looking at adverse drug events in older people and how can we prevent adverse drug events. And we're doing this by looking at something we call prescribing cascades. So prescribing cascades happen when a person takes a drug, they develop a side effect. That side effect is misinterpreted as being a new medical condition, and then they're given another drug therapy to treat that medical condition, which leads to lots of problems for older people.
The cascade situation, okay.
So an example of that is, for example, drugs like NSAIDs that are commonly used. A person could take an NSAID, they could develop some higher increase in their blood pressure as a result of that. That may not be recognized as being related to the drug potentially, and they get put on another drug therapy to treat their blood pressure. So these are problems that we see a lot. Yeah. And we're very concerned about this because it's one of the things that contributes to polypharmacy, and it contributes to older people in particular having unnecessary drug-related problems. So we put together an amazing team of individuals from 6 countries that are all working on this issue, because it's something that doesn't just happen in one country, it's something that happens in many countries, or all countries really. And it's something that probably happens in different ways in different countries and is different between women and men, and that's something that has not been studied at all. Yes, I think that's important to think about. So when we think about drugs and we think about older people, you think about both sex and you think about gender, and both are important. So from a sex or more of a biologic perspective, drugs may impact women and men differently. Mm-hmm. So one example is that often women, in particular older women, may need lower doses of a drug therapy. Okay. So that's how sex may come to play. And from a gender perspective, it's also important too, and again, something that I don't think have studied enough, but it might be that, why is it that women may be prescribed different kinds of drugs than men? So the thought is that women are more likely to be prescribed medicines for sort of like psychological conditions, and men are more likely to be prescribed medicines for medical conditions. And so this could impact the way that some of these prescribing cascades develop. Well, I'll start by talking about the kinds of data we collect. So the first piece that we wanted to try to figure out is, what are these prescribing cascades? What do they look like, and how are they different in different countries? And at the start of the project, we knew that there was 20, 30, 40 different kinds of prescribing cascades that we've identified and written about in various different ways. But we've put together a Delphi type process where we're asking people who work in the field from different countries to tell us about the prescribing cascades that they've seen in their individual country. And already, it's not finished yet, it's still in process. We've started to identify not just 10s and 20s of prescribing cascades, but hundreds. And so this is something that we think is going to be important to really have a bit of an inventory about prescribing cascades, and also to get people to think about, shall we say, prescribing cascades to come, because we've identified ones related to drugs that are currently on the market, but there'll be others that we haven't thought about, which will become apparent, and as new drugs come on the market, there'll be new prescribing cascades. So it's a bit of an ongoing piece. So the first piece is this inventory and sort of the Delphi process we're using. We're also taking advantage of the fact that different countries have different sources of data that we can use. So we can look within our sort of more population type data to look at how drugs are prescribed in different countries for women and men, and use that to also look at how prescribing cascades might differ. And then the third technique that we're using is we're using interviews and creating vignettes to try to get at some of the issues related to gender, and to get people to think about different kinds of scenarios and how would you respond in different countries. And I think we're going to learn things that we hadn't necessarily anticipated. have an amazing group, and I think we found a way to work together. So we have people from 6 countries. So we have Ireland, we have Belgium, we have Italy, we have Israel, we have Canada, and the United States. So very dispersed, obviously. And what we do from a very specific point of view is we have monthly meetings, which over the last couple of months have evolved in terms of our use of technology, as it has with everybody. And now we're doing these by Zoom, which works really very well. And on those meetings, we get together and we work and talk about the progress on the various items that we've been dealing with. And in between, as you can imagine, there's lots of communication that goes back and forth between by email and by phone, because that obviously works pretty well. In addition to that, we've created an annual meeting format. So we got together in person last year, actually in Poland, to coincide with the European Union Geriatric Medicine Society meeting.
Yes.
So we were able to meet, which was really great. And we would have been meeting just a little while ago this year, again at that meeting where we all tend to congregate, and that would have been in Greece. But of course, we're not doing that, so we're doing the virtual technology. But I think it's worked incredibly well. I think having this regular format has worked well. Having the opportunity to have the face-to-face kind of meetings as well. And now that we can't do those face-to-face, I think people value even more the opportunity to get together in this video format, and I think we've been able to work really well. Well, I think COVID-19 has impacted all of us. And I think, as you know, around the world, from a research perspective, we've had to slow down and in some cases stop various kinds of research activity when we were dealing with the pandemic, which obviously continues. So we did have to slow down our work, and we had to be very cognizant of what was appropriate or not appropriate to do during the pandemic. So for example, our Delphi process, we didn't feel it was appropriate to be reaching out to people and asking them to respond to questions when there was other things that they needed to do. So we had to slow down some of those processes. We were, for example, scheduled to meet in person in this year, and we were not able to do that. So it's definitely impacted our work. We have now, though, because we are meeting virtually, figured out how we can do things differently. So for example, when we're looking at vignettes and we had envisioned interviews, when we first started thinking about this, we were thinking about in-person interviews, of course, and that's the way we thought we were going to be working. Now we have to pivot to how are we going to do that virtually. So we are back on track. We've certainly had to have a time of slowing down, and we've now had to think differently about how we'll be doing the work going forward. I guess another piece is we had a symposium scheduled that we were going to be doing in person to talk about some of our work, and again, we made the decision to defer that a year out. So lots of changes related to COVID. Having said that, I think we've been able to slow down, and now we're in the process of ramping up and getting back as much as we can to maintain our usual activity.